Friends, I have a question for you. Have you been to the store recently? And if you have, which you probably have, what did you see there? No, not the shelves or what's on the shelves, the people. Did you see people taking things out of their cart at the checkout line because they didn't have enough money? Did you see people taking a lot longer on the store shelves, comparing products that they would normally just purchase because finances are tight? Friends, the pain is very real, and we're seeing that across the United States. And when we look at the numbers, they truly are shocking. We're being told that things are the best that they've ever been, and that is so very far from the truth. You probably know this from the personal relationships you have with others, that there are a lot of people struggling right now. People who are supposed to be retired are struggling to put food on their table. We need to have some honest conversations about what's actually going on in the country, and we're going to do that together right now. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, but together we have these conversations about what the mainstream media doesn't want to talk to you about. We talk about what's happening at the Walmarts. We talk about what's happening at the grocery stores like Kroger and Aldi. But today, let's talk about the people. Let's talk about the friends that you and I have, or the situations that maybe you are in today. We're all feeling pinched because prices are going up dramatically. But let's talk about this from the other side of things, income. Now, how bad is it in the United States? That's the real question. I mean, we turn on the news, we open up websites, we want to find out how bad it is really out there. Is it a good time to switch jobs? There are 331 million people here in the United States, supposedly. 129 million of them have jobs. Now, it doesn't take a rocket surgeon to figure out that we're talking about 200 million people inside the United States that are not employed. That's a big number. But we got retirees, we got kids. I mean, nobody expects a 3-year-old to work. Well, at least in this country, right? If you want your lithium batteries for your car and you need the cobalt, the slave labor over in the Congo and other countries using child labor in the mining of cobalt, that is sadly still a thing. Slave labor around the world is truly a thing. But the ironic thing is, I think a lot of Americans right now are not hungry to be free from slavery, but they want to be free from unemployment. They wish they had a job. And that's a situation we find a lot of people in. We were told by the Biden administration that in February, they announced that they had added 275,000 jobs to the economy. Now, we've already talked about that a lot of the jobs being added are jobs that people are taking a second or third job on because they can't make ends meet. We're losing people who have one job. Less and less people have one job, but more and more people have 2, 3, 4 jobs. And that's not good. People having lots of part-time jobs but not able to hold a full-time job. That's a situation we see out there right now. Now, while you may hear those numbers that we added 275,000 jobs to the labor market in February, if we look closer at the numbers, we'll see that native-born Americans lost 560,000 jobs. So 560,000 less people who were born here had jobs by the end of February that had at the beginning of February. When you start thinking about that number, that doesn't work. That doesn't sound good at all. So who's getting all these jobs? Well, the simple answer is people from other countries are getting the jobs here. In February, supposedly they added 1.2 million foreigners have gotten jobs. Maybe that's over a couple months, but all that to say that lots and lots of foreigners are getting jobs here in the U.S. and Americans are losing those jobs. Over the past 3 months, 2.4 million Americans lost their employment. Now, I don't know if that sounds okay to you, but that's worse. That's almost as bad as during the cough. When we had that global pandemic, we saw a lot of people lose their jobs. And that's really the most severe drop-off of employment that we've ever seen. But when we start seeing numbers today and over the past number of months that actually starting to look similar to those drop-offs, it's truly heartbreaking. 2.4 million Americans who had jobs at the beginning of December don't have them anymore. And that's net. So more people lost their jobs and got jobs again. But overall, 2.4 million less Americans have jobs now than they did at the beginning of December. If that doesn't sound like a crisis to you, friends, I don't know what could. We're being told that things are better than they ever have been, and yet we're seeing numbers like these. Now, I said before that 200 million Americans don't have jobs. Well, how many of these people are kids? How many of these people are seniors? How many of them are disabled? How many just can't be in the workforce at all? Well, let's look at that number. Of the people that should be in the workforce, that are able to work and are of the appropriate age, 107 million of them are not in the labor force. Like I said, we have 331 million people in the United States. So when we start talking about working age people, we're talking about almost half of working age population doesn't have a job. Now, I don't know if you've gone out in the middle of the day. I work some crazy hours here, so sometimes I'm driving down to Walmart at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Isn't it amazing how many people are on the roads during working hours? Does anybody remember back during the 90s, the early 2000s, when you went to the store like in the afternoon, it was like empty, you know? The stay-at-home moms could like jet around and get everything done super easy because there's nobody at the stores. All the people were at work, you know? But that isn't the case anymore. When we have half the American labor force not in the labor force, that's just to put it in perspective. At the height of the great financial crisis, like that was a big deal, right? 2008, 2009, that was catastrophic. We had about just under 90 million people out of the labor force at that time. People who lost their jobs, people who wanted to get jobs but couldn't. 107 million today. To say that this is worse than the great financial crisis is accurate when it comes to employment. People just don't have a job. And if you don't have a job, how are you supposed to buy food and put food on the table? How are you supposed to pay your bills? How are you supposed to pay off your credit cards? How are you supposed to do all these things that society needs people to do in order to keep the economy going? The situation is more dire than we are being told. We're being told, like I said, that things are the best they've ever been. That things are wonderful. And yet you and I know lots of people who are struggling to find jobs, people who have been laid off. We've had more layoffs. The layoffs for this February were the highest for February since 2008. The 2008 financial crisis is the only time we've seen a February with this many layoffs. Back in 2009, February 2009. That's how bad things are. We are comparing ourselves to the great financial crisis, and in some ways we are exceeding the pain that we felt back then. The stock market is at all-time highs. Why wouldn't it be, right? Even though Americans don't have jobs, even though the banks are saddled with ridiculous levels of debt, and they are saddled with office buildings that are empty. I just saw a note that Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the next couple of years, we're going to see half of the office buildings in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania are going to be empty. Now, I'm not a math wizard, though I am an accountant, right? And what I'm seeing there is I'm seeing a lot of banks are having to pay, and property owners are having to pay on loans that aren't producing any revenue. That doesn't work. That's a recipe for people starting to default on these loans. And these banks are going to get stuck with property that's said to be worth this much, but yet they can't sell it for anywhere near that. If you saw this great financial crisis in home mortgages, we're seeing today the same kind of thing, but in office buildings, commercial real estate, and with so many Americans without jobs, we're starting to see that starting to impact home foreclosures as well. People aren't able to pay their mortgage anymore. If you don't have a job, you can't pay your mortgage. We're seeing a bubble starting to collapse inside the auto market. The auto market is, people are taking out loans that are greater than the purchase price of their vehicle because they're rolling over their previous loan on top of the purchase price of the vehicle. So if you still owed $5,000 on your old car, they've been adding that onto your new loan for your new car. So it's the purchase price plus the $5,000 you still owe for your other car. If that makes sense to you, there are job opportunities for you in the Biden administration because they are looking for people who are proficient in Common Core math, that can take 2 plus 2 and come up with 6, because that is the magic necessary in order to come out with the reports that are coming out. We desperately need more people who can lie better in order for us to keep the illusion of a good economy going. I'm sorry, friends, I'm not talented at lying, so I'm just trying to tell you the truth, and we're trying to have a conversation here about how bad things really are. We can look at the numbers here, but I don't see how you can lie about these numbers. And yet, people are getting on the mainstream media all over the place. Public officials are spouting off about all sorts of stuff. But when you look at the numbers, that 2.4 million Americans today do not have jobs, though they were employed back at the beginning of December. That is evidence that I don't see any way of getting around. I don't care how many people you bring in from overseas and give them jobs. The question is how many Americans have jobs. And when we have 107 million Americans of working age that don't have jobs, that should be the priority. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base. Let me know down in the comments down below whether you think I'm off base or not on that. Let me know down in the comments if you know people who are struggling in this greatest economy of all time. Things are getting difficult, and friends, things are accelerating. The layoffs accelerated in February, and we're seeing more and more people without jobs here in the United States. And do you think it's going to change here in March? Or do you think it's going to change in April? Do you think it's going to change in the coming months? Are we about to hit a rebound? And as I keep saying, I don't see how the stock market continues to ignore this forever. At some point, they're going to realize how bad a financial shape we're in, and a lot of people's retirement accounts are going to be devastated. So, let me know down in the comments your thoughts on these things. Thanks so much for being a part of what we're doing here on this channel, and I appreciate each and every one of you. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.